They say blood is thicker than water, but no one tells you what to do when your blood turns cold. My name is Issa Khalid. I'm 34 years old, and as of last month, I became the youngest director of international intelligence strategy in the United Nations Cyber Division. You won't find my face on the news. You won't hear my name in government reports. My job lives between silence and shadows, protecting nations through code, not guns. But today, none of that matters. Because today, I am just the unwanted son. I stood outside the grand entrance of the Ivory Orchid, a wedding venue so luxurious it made royalty look common. White marble lions stood guard at its golden gates, and a soft violin echoed from inside. I wore a simple gray shawani, not my uniform, not my medals, because they wouldn't mean anything here. Not to my family. I hadn't seen them in nearly 9 years. Not since I walked away from the business empire my father built with iron fists and cold logic. Khalid Industries, Pakistan's largest tech infrastructure firm, is the kind of company that appears on the front page of Forbes Middle East, not because of innovation, but because of intimidation. And I was the son who said no. Inside, they were celebrating the wedding of my younger sister, Alina. My name wasn't on the main invitation list. My mother had to sneak me in through a private RSVP. She begged me to come, and I, like a fool, still wanted to be seen. As I stepped through the glimmering doors, I wasn't greeted with hugs or cheers, just glances, curiosity, confusion, pity. "Isn't that Issa?" I heard someone whisper behind me. "Didn't he run off to do some job in Europe? Left the family like a traitor?" Another voice followed, colder than the first. I ignored them. I've faced hackers, threats, and cyber-terrorists. But nothing prepares you for the sting of being invisible in your own bloodline. The banquet hall was draped in golden silk and ivory roses. Alina stood on the stage, radiant in red and gold. Her smile lit up the room, until her eyes met mine. Her expression froze only for a second, but enough for me to know she didn't expect me to come. My father stood beside her. Imran Khalid, the tycoon, the legend, the man who built skyscrapers out of code. He hadn't aged much, same sharp jawline, same steel gaze, but something in his face told me I was still a stranger. He didn't nod. He didn't smile. He turned away. I walked to table 19. Yes, 19. Not near the family, not near the stage. Hidden among ex-employees and distant relatives. I sat alone. The server approached to pour water. Even she hesitated. "You are with the bride's side?" she asked. I smiled bitterly. "No, I'm with the invisible side." She didn't understand, just nodded and walked off. People came and went. Toasts were raised. My father gave a speech. Alina laughed. My elder brother Aslan clinked his glass and spoke about legacy and loyalty. I took another sip of plain water, feeling the irony tighten in my throat. Aslan Khalid, the golden boy, the heir, the one who stayed. He hadn't always been like this. We were once best friends. Climbed mango trees together. Dreamed of becoming astronauts. But when I chose cybersecurity and risk, and he chose corporate comfort and control, that's when the cracks began. And now, there was a crater between us. I stood to leave quietly, not wanting to be part of the next group photo. But as I turned, I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Issa," a voice asked, unsure. I turned. It was my cousin, Zoya. She was one of the few who still followed my journey online quietly, without ever liking a post. "Zoya," I said, my voice softening, "you look like you belong here." She frowned. "You look like you don't." Her words stung, but her eyes were kind. "Wait, why did you come?" I looked toward the stage, because I still believe family should mean something. She hesitated, then leaned closer. "They don't talk about you, Issa. It's like you vanished. Like you embarrassed them." I smiled, almost proudly. "Good, then they'll be shocked next week. I'll be at the Defense Summit, representing the United Nations. Your uncle and Aslan don't know yet, but they'll be sitting across from me." She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "So you didn't disappear, you just rose." "Where they couldn't see?" I nodded. "Exactly," Zoya gave a faint smile. "Well, good, let them see now." I didn't stay long after that. As the fireworks exploded outside and the music thundered through the night, I quietly slipped away. Like always. But this time I wasn't leaving in shame. I was returning. As a storm. Do you know what it feels like to be erased while you're still alive? To stand in your family's mansion and feel like a ghost? That was me, 7 years ago. I had just returned from Geneva after my first successful counter-cyber attack on a data breach targeting 5 UN diplomats. My work had made waves in the intelligence community. My name was whispered in encrypted rooms. But at home? I was still the disappointment. Aslan was hosting one of his investor dinners at the family estate in Lahore, an event dripping in suits, watches, and smiles faker than the Italian art on the walls. I wore my favorite navy blue shalwar kameez, freshly pressed. I had even shaved, something rare for me back then. As I stepped into the main hall, I caught glimpses of old college friends. A few board members from Khalid Industries, and unsurprisingly, no one looking my way. Except one. My father. He was standing near the fireplace, a glass of Mintley in hand, surrounded by admirers. His voice cut through the room like a CEO's mission statement. And we're expanding into cybersecurity in Q4. The real game is no longer hardware, it's control of information. As he said it, his eyes landed on me. But there was no pride, no recognition. Just evaluation. I walked over, trying not to shrink under the chandelier's light. "Dad," I said. "Issa," he replied, nodding. "You're early. Wanted to surprise you?" He smiled thinly. In our world, surprises are rarely good. I felt the punch, but said nothing. Aslan came over, grinning like a politician. He hugged me, too tight to be genuine. "Our favorite hacker is back," he announced loudly. "Try not to tap into the guest Wi-Fi, okay?" Laughter. I smiled, but something inside me cracked. "Don't worry," I replied calmly. "I already did. Your firewall still leaks like a sieve." The laughter died instantly. A few eyes widened. Aslan's smile vanished. "You're joking, right?" "Depends," I said. "You want to fix it, or do you want a lesson?" My father stepped in quickly. "This isn't the time, Issa. We have real guests here, please." "Real guests, not you." I backed off. "Sure," I said. "Don't worry. I know where I'm not welcome." I spent the rest of the evening at the far end of the dining table, near the dessert trays. No one came to sit next to me, except my mother. She arrived quietly, like a gentle wind, wearing a pale blue sari, her eyes tired but still kind. "You shouldn't provoke them," she said softly. "I didn't," I replied. "I just existed." She reached for my hand. "They don't understand your world. Not the way you think. Not the way you work." I looked into her eyes. "But do they even try, Amma?" She didn't answer, just patted my hand and looked away. That night I packed my bags. No drama, no announcement. I left a note in my mother's drawer that said, "I'm not angry, just tired of pretending this is home." And I walked out. What followed were the hardest years of my life. I slept in basements in Brussels, ate microwave biryani, learned 5 languages through pain and pressure. I faced blackmailers, terrorists, ransomware gangs. I watched people I trusted sell my secrets, but I rose. I rose because I had to. By 30, I was leading a covert UN cyber task force in The Hague. By 32, I had stopped 3 international data wars before they even made headlines. And now, at 34, I carry an ID badge that opens doors no billionaire ever will. And yet, despite all that, Alina still didn't put my name on the main wedding invite. That thought kept me up that night in my hotel room. I sat on the window ledge, staring at the city lights of Islamabad, wondering, why do we always crave the love that hurt us most? A soft ping broke my thoughts. A text from Zoya. "They're talking about you. Aslan's furious. Thinks you came to stir drama." "Good," I replied. "You okay?" "No. Still coming to the summit. Definitely." I turned off the phone and stared at the moon outside. They'd see me soon, and not the way they expected. The next day, I visited someone I hadn't seen in years. Uncle Jamil. Not my real uncle. He was my father's ex-assistant. Quiet, brilliant, and the only adult who treated me like more than a chess piece. After my father fired him over a minor mistake, he vanished from our lives. But I tracked him down. He lived in a small apartment above a corner bookstore in Rawalpindi, still surrounded by old circuit boards and teacups stained with knowledge. When I walked in, he stood frozen. "Isa," he said, his eyes widening. You're alive," I laughed. "You thought I died?" He hugged me tightly. "No, I just assumed your family erased you completely." I smiled bitterly. "They tried. Didn't work. We sat for hours, sipping dude patty, catching up on lost time. I heard rumors," he said, "that you were working for them. The UN." He nodded. "I do. And I'm about to review a major defense proposal from Khalid Industries," he set up. "You're serious?" I pulled out my laptop and opened the files. "Their encryption protocol is flawed. Their financials are shady. I'm going to expose everything live at the summit." He stared at me for a long moment. "They'll hate you." I looked him in the eye. "They already do." He leaned back, then whispered something that haunted me for days. And I wasn't walking into that boardroom as the prodigal son. I was walking in as the man they never saw coming. The International Defense Summit was held at the Serena Grand in Islamabad, a fortress of glass and gold, where diplomats smiled like they didn't sign off on airstrikes and billion-dollar contracts behind closed doors. I arrived with nothing but a laptop, a black UN briefcase, and the confidence of a man who had walked through fire. The security team waved me in without question. "Mr. Khalid," one of them said, nodding with quiet respect. "The intelligence room is ready." The title on my badge was long. Isa Khalid, Director UN Strategic Cyber Defense, Level A clearance. But no one here cared about job titles. They cared about power? No. And today, I carried the kind that didn't need to shout. As I entered the main conference room, heads began to turn. Not in awe, in confusion, because seated on the VIP panel was my father, and next to him, Aslan. They both froze for half a second when they saw me. My father's expression tightened. Aslan squinted, like he was trying to believe what he was seeing. Like a ghost from a chapter he thought he'd burned. I gave him a look away. I gave them a nod, calm, professional. I took my seat at the center of the panel, pulled out my files, connected my laptop to the main screen. No fanfare, no drama, just silence, until the host stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said into the mic, "please welcome our keynote reviewer and summit speaker, Director of Strategic Cyber Defense for the United Nations, Mr. Isa Khalid." The room paused. Polite, hesitant. Aslan stopped clapping after 2 seconds. My father didn't clap at all. I stood, took the mic, looked out over the sea of suits, diplomats, generals, CEOs. Then I said the first words that shattered everything. "Good morning. I am Isa Khalid, eldest son of Imran Khalid, heir, once rejected, now returned. Not to ask for a seat, but to audit the table." A ripple ran through the room. Some people exchanged glances. Some leaned forward. My father's jaw clenched. I clicked to the first slide, a timeline of Khalid Industries' defense proposal to the UN. "Let's get straight to the point," I said. "The encryption system proposed for this multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project contains vulnerabilities, some lazy, some dangerous." I clicked again. Slide 2. An animated breakdown of how a single exploit could crash an entire national power grid. The system currently being pitched could, if breached, cause a blackout across 3 major cities, affect airports, shut down hospitals, and put thousands at risk. Gasps, frowns, murmurs. I paused, looked directly at Aslan, didn't blink. Slide 3. A heat map of IP addresses connected to known corporate data leaks, traced back to Khalid Industries' Lahore server farm. This wasn't an oversight, it was negligence. And negligence, when weaponized, is treason by another name. The room fell into silence. Journalists scribbled. Military officials exchanged sharp looks. I turned toward my father. And now, financials. Aslan shifted uncomfortably. Slide 4. A spreadsheet titled Unreported Subsidiaries and Hidden Shell Costs. Cross-linked to defense bids. I could see Aslan's face pale. I didn't attack him directly. Not yet, but the message was clear. He'd either signed off on fake expenses or failed to notice them. Both were fatal. The host interrupted, her voice nervous. Mr. Khalid, are you alleging fraud? No, I replied. I'm alleging arrogance. Then, for the first time, I looked at my father directly, fully. He stared back, unmoving. There was a time, I said, when I wanted nothing more than to make this man proud. To be seen, not as a rebel, not as a liability, but as a son. Now every camera turned, I continued. But today I realize I don't need that anymore. I have this room, this badge, this voice, and I will use it to protect people living for my own blood, if I must. Silence. Then thunderous applause. Real. Reluctant but real. Aslan stood abruptly. This is a setup, he shouted. You're bitter. That's all this is. You came here to sabotage us. I raised a hand. Calmly. I came to tell the truth. If you have proof otherwise, Aslan, the floor is yours. He opened his mouth, closed it. I turned to our father, but Imran Khalid said nothing. He sat in cold, hard stillness, his empire unraveling in front of him. After the session, I was swarmed. Officials from Belgium, Qatar, and Singapore came up to shake my hand. A UN delegate whispered, "That was the cleanest takedown I've ever seen." But I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. The weight of years, of rejection, of silence, of waiting to be heard. Now that it didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. That night I received a message from an unknown number, just for words. You went too far. I ignored it. Then another. You're still our shame. I stared at the screen. Then slowly I typed, then bury me, because I'm not coming home to beg for love I never received. I hit send, deleted the number, turned off my phone, and stood by the window, looking out at a city that finally saw me not as a failure, but as a force. The day after the summit, Islamabad felt quieter. Not because the world had changed, but because I had. I stood in my hotel room, shirtless, looking at the reflection of a man I no longer recognized. The old meager, hungry, desperate for validation, he was gone. In his place stood someone colder, sharper, but strangely, lonelier. The applause still rang in my ears. The journalists had started spinning stories. An cyber director calls out his own bloodline. They were calling me brave, heroic. But they didn't know the full truth. They didn't know the ache behind the speech, the silence that shaped it. The boy who used to wait by the study room door, just hoping his father would say, "I'm proud of you." No headline could fix that. Round noon, a knock broke the silence. I opened the door and there she was, my mother. Her hair tucked under a soft silk dupatta, her eyes swollen but warm. She stepped in without a word and placed a small tiffin on the table. "Mutton korma," she said softly, "and the mint reda you used to like." I said nothing. I just closed the door behind her. She stood still, hands clasped in front of her, as if standing before a judge. "I watched the entire thing," she whispered. "From the live stream. You looked like your father did once." I didn't know if that was a compliment or a curse. "I wasn't trying to destroy him," I said. She nodded. "I know. I was trying to show them I'm not a mistake." She walked toward me, reached out and brushed my collar like I was still her little boy. "I failed you," she said, "when I didn't fight harder, when I let them silence your light just to protect their name." My throat tightened. "You don't have to say this, Emma." "I do," she said, "because yesterday the world heard your voice, but I needed you to hear mine." She pulled a folded photo from her purse and handed it to me. It was old. A faded picture of me, age 9, hugging a laptop with cracked keys. My father's arms stiffly around me. My mother beaming. And behind us, on a couch, Aslan, holding a birth certificate. I stared closer, then froze. The name on it was mine, but the father's name was not Imran Khalid. My breath caught in my chest. What is this? My mother's voice quivered. Imran isn't your biological father, Isa. Time stopped. She sat down shakily, tears brimming. You were born from love. I was young. Before the marriage. I made a mistake, or maybe it's not a mistake, just a choice no one forgave. I couldn't speak. I married Imran when you were 1. He raised you like his own for a few years. But when Aslan was born, everything changed. You became a threat, a crack in the perfect image. So he erased you. I stared at the photo, at the falsified documents, the silence, the cruel treatment, the cold glares. They all made sense now. I was never really his son. I stood there, trembling not with rage, but grief. Why now? I asked. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid, she said. But you deserve truth now, because you've earned the right to be free of their chain. She came close, placed her hand on my chest. You are not a disappointment, Isa. You're the most courageous man I've ever known. You were never truly forgotten. Just hidden. My tears fell before I could stop them. The first time in years I hugged her. Pouted. Not as a dutiful son, but as a wounded soul finally allowed to cry. Later that night, I received a message from Aslan. We need to talk. Just us. I'll come alone, please. I almost deleted it, but something inside me said, face it now, finish it. So I agreed. He arrived an hour later. No guards, no suit, just jeans, a black shirt, and guilt wrapped in expensive cologne. He entered cautiously. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he never bothered solving. I didn't know, he said. What the shell accounts? Asked coldly. He shook his head. Know about you? About the things you've done? The man you became? I didn't reply, he continued. I spent years thinking you were the failure, that you ran because you were scared. But the truth is, I was scared. Ouch. Scared you'd outshine me. Scared you'd make our father see how small I really was. I didn't want to pity him. But I saw something I hadn't in years. Sincerity. I didn't leak the project, he said. But I didn't fix it either. I was careless. Lazy. I depended on the name, the legacy. Not skill? I stared at him. Then fix it. Not for me, for the people who depend on your technology. He nodded. And then, after a pause, whispered, he's planning to disown you officially. Strip your name from the family trust. I smiled darkly. Good. I don't want their money. It's not about money, he said. It's about erasure. Total. He looked at me, something flickering in his eyes. But I won't let him. I raised an eyebrow. He stepped forward. Let me stand by you this time. Let me be your brother, not your rival. I studied his face, then slowly said, actions, not words. He nodded. I'll have them. 3 days after the summit, I was summoned. Not invited. Summoned. To the Khalid estate. My father's kingdom. It felt symbolic, poetic even, that the man who never once asked for my opinion now demanded my presence. I arrived dressed simply. White kurta, black waistcoat, no armor, no badges, no title. Ow. Let them see the man they tried to break. The gates opened. The guards didn't greet me. Even the house itself felt colder, as if the very marble remembered me as a threat, not a son. Inside the study, Imran Khaled stood by the fireplace, the same place where he once lectured guests about empires and control. Only this time, he wasn't surrounded by admirers, just silence. Aslan sat on the edge of a leather chair, hands clasped. My mother stood nearby, arms crossed, not as a decoration, but as a witness. My father didn't turn. He simply said, "You humiliated me." I walked forward. Slowly, I told the truth. You exposed vulnerabilities that could have been handled privately. I gave you the chance. You chose silence. He turned then, and for the first time, I saw it. Age. Not in his wrinkles, but in his defeat. You think the world runs on truth? He spat. The world runs on perception, on power. What you did has consequences. Yes, I said. And the consequence is accountability. He took a step toward me. You are not my blood. The words landed like a bullet I'd already braced for. I nodded. I know. Aslan stood. Baba. But my father held up a hand. You were a lie from the beginning, your mother's stain. I gave you my name and you used it against me. No, I said calmly. I earned that name. You gave it to me, but you never gave me respect. He stepped closer. I built this empire from nothing. You think I'll let a bastard burn it to the ground? Aslan flinched. My mother gasped. But I smiled. I don't want your empire. Then what do you want? I paused. Nothing. That word seemed to hit harder than any insult I could have thrown. I want nothing, I repeated. Not your name, not your money, not your apology. I turned to leave. Then I stopped. One thing, though, I said over my shoulder. The world no longer fears shadows. It fears exposure. So clean your house, or someone else will. My father said nothing. Aslan walked with me outside. He looked like a man reborn and destroyed all at once. I'll fix it, he whispered. I nodded. You better. Then he handed me something. A document. His share of the company, partially signed over to a new innovation fund under my name. What is this? Start, he said. And for the first time, I believed him. 2 weeks later, headlines shifted. Khaled Industries launches Tech for Good program, led by you unapproved innovation lab. I didn't ask for my name to be used, but there it was. It's quiet, simple. At the bottom of the announcement, advisor, Isa Khalid. The world didn't need to know I had rejected the throne, only that I built my own castle. On my last night in Pakistan, I stood on the same rooftop where Aslan and I once flew paper planes. The stars above me didn't blink. But my heart finally did. Mother came up holding a warm shawl. You're leaving? I nodded back to Geneva. Will you come back? I looked out over the city, and I stopped feeling like a stranger in my own story. She reached up, kissed my forehead. Then I'll rewrite the story with you. The flight took off just before dawn. As the clouds swallowed the city beneath me, I closed my eyes not with heaviness, but peace, because sometimes, to be seen, you must first disappear, and to rise, you must let go of the place that buried you. If your family never sees your worth, would you still fight for them, or would you finally choose yourself? Let me know in the comments. I'm listening, and maybe, just maybe, your story begins now.